Hi, Facebook friends. Helen Archontou here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm so happy to have some time with you today on this Friday. No better way to kick off the weekend than chatting with Ruthie. I say from here, you should make a plan to get yourself to Montclair and go to Ruthie's. You'll have a great dinner. You'll hear some live music and you'll get to experience everything or much of what we're talking about today. So I'm so glad that you could join us and be part of a great conversation of a great spot that's local right here in our community. So welcome, Ruthie Perretti. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Helen. So nice to be speaking with you and the audience out there. Thank you.
Yes, and so our viewers know, we love to lift up conversations about women in our community that are doing amazing work, and also women who have sharing stories, because we know that when we share our stories, they definitely connect us to other women and help inspire and motivate them. And so there's so much in your story, and I was so I just, for transparency's sake, I've been to Ruthie's many times, known the whole establishment and Ruthie's story for years, because my husband plays often at her establishment. They're one of the few places that still really embraces and believes in live music. That's one of some, not as many as used to be, but Ruthie's barbecue is definitely a place that keeps music alive for sure. And when I've been there, I've learned pieces about Ruthie and read about articles over time. And then recently we ended up just marching together at the Women's March not so long ago. And as we started talking, I said to her, would you come on YWTV? And so here we are today. That's how it happens, folks. That's how it happens.
Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know Ruthie, let me give you a little bit about her background. She's a Montclair native, and she started her career as a fashion designer and creative director at Ralph Lauren. And she went on to become a creative consultant, which allowed her to work with brands like Timberlake, Sears, Hyatt Hotels, Spike Lee, 40 Acres, and a Mule, Discovery, and it says channel here. And so she returned to Ralph Lauren as a senior vice president of women's design. And after 30 years in the design business, she and her husband joined forces and made a major career shift. And they became the owners of Ruthie's Barbecue and Pizza, which is a much loved community restaurant. And as I said, it hosts live music every weekend. And it's just really a favorite local gathering spot for people of all ages locally. Her journey beyond fashion led her to really a next chapter that was been pretty robust. She now is focused on food and community. She's a farm owner also in Western New Jersey, where she closely is connected to the importance of agriculture and farming and how it becomes a food source for their restaurant. Her passion around farming inspired her to learn more about sustainability and best practices. And in collaboration with River Valley Community Grains, she enlisted other growers and this year purchased an old warehouse in the village, which there locally, which is now being converted into a mill and an education center. Through this collaboration, she's created a resource for other growers and that will encourage them to farm regeneratively and to forge relationships with many local artisan bakers. It will also be open as an educational center in partnership with Montclair Community Farms, where vocational students will learn from grower, miller, and bakers in order to pursue careers in this important and visionary work. And we at the YW are connected also to Montclair Community Farms. We've done some cross-programming with them. They're involved in a lot of our camps, after school programs, our girls initiatives. So it's all connected, as we all say. We're all connected. So welcome, and what a wonderful, what a wonderful two huge chapters of your life that you get to carry with you. I think for the women, so many of the women that we work with at the YW, it would be great for them to hear a little bit about that shift that you made from the corporate world into this other world, which probably couldn't be more different, I'm thinking.
Yeah, yeah, it's very true. I mean, I was thinking this, one of the event with this program, there were some, questions we talked about it ahead of time, or was thinking through, and thinking through that corporate world to what I'm doing now. And, I've never thought of myself, even as a kid, I don't think I dreamed of being in a corporate world. I always had like kind of a part of myself that I felt like I was a pioneer, or I wanted to, do something fresh and new. But I actually am very grateful that I started my career in the corporate world. And I'm grateful that I worked in a company like Ralph Lauren that was started by a visionary. And since I was in design, I got to work very closely with him. So there was a lot that I learned there. I think also the structure of a corporation was really important. As a young person coming right out of school and saying, hey, I have dreams of having my own business, but I don't think I would have been ready. So to start out in a corporation and really have that structure, and then also just see how things happen. How does something start from a nugget of an idea to actually being executed into reality?
True, yeah.
It was really, I was immensely fortunate to be with that company, particularly during the times that I was there, from the 80s when it was still privately held. I left for 10 years. I had my own consulting agency where I worked with a lot of other corporations, large and small. And that was also very enlightening to see the diversity of how businesses work and the way different ways they're structured. And when I was doing that kind of work, when I was consulting, even though I was a creative consultant, I also got involved in how they executed ideas. I really got into management and started to look at how their departments were structured, who was working on what. So I learned a lot. And so when I finally did go back to Ralph Lauren 10 years later, and Ralph had always been in touch with me the time I was consulting. In fact, I was still consulting for the company after I had left, and asked me to come back as a senior vice president to head up a new brand in women's, Blue Label. I was ready. I was completely ready for that because I had already been, as a consultant, kind of starting these little like baby projects, all over the place, and putting teams together and having to execute something within a certain time frame, with deliverables, and also kind of understand my team quickly, understand who could do what, who would excel where. So it was all a great experience. But underneath all of that was this yearning for me to do something that had more meaning, that was more connected to me spiritually, and also with meaning. And, I also speak to Ruthie's got started because I met Eric, and it really was a love project. We met, we started dating. He's a chef. I was still working at Ralph Lauren at the time, but we started dreaming about this restaurant, and wouldn't it be fun to have a restaurant? And I'm like, yeah, wouldn't that? And so at a certain level, I always talk about entrepreneurship, or just how to achieve your dreams, or do different things. Because if you allow yourself to dream, if you allow yourself to keep on imagining things that you could possibly be doing, and don't talk yourself out of it. I think a lot of times people have dreams about doing something, but then they get stuck in the waters where they start in the mud, when they start going, oh, how could I do that? That's not possible. How could I ever do that?
Yeah.
And if you allow yourself to get stuck there, maybe that dream will never happen. But if you allow yourself just to be comfortable with thinking about it and dreaming about it, if a door opens or a window opens, you're more likely to step through it. So I could say that Eric was my window.
Yeah. And I guess that's what I think is such a great part of this story, though, is that, you had this dream. And I'm just thinking about, again, some of the women that may be watching that, have a dream about something that, couldn't be so different, right? I mean, from what you were doing to what you were thinking about doing. How do you overcome the fear of making that transition? Because, or the, how do you like move yourself into that space? Because that's a big leap. I mean, it's obviously, it sounds like your relationship with Eric, helped move that along, but there was, I'm sure, a lot there, to work through in terms of.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be quite honest, the first time that I went off on my own when I left Ralph Lauren, I was really quite confident that I'll make it work. You know, I just thought there was enough. I felt there was enough opportunity work out there that I could get work. So even though I didn't leave that job because I had another job waiting for me, I don't know. I had this underlying confidence that I remember saying to myself, I'll never starve. You know, if I need to work there, I could get a job at Starbucks if I needed to, and I could support. I also had the opportunity, the advantage of not having a family,
At the time.
a mortgage. You know, I could afford to take that risk at that stage of my career. And then when I went back, and the second time when I left corporate, that really wasn't my choice. I was laid off. There was a big shakeup. There was a lot. The company, like many of fashion retail companies, were going through a lot of changes. Retail was suffering. So there was a lot of shakeup at the company. And I would say really what happened was that next level of management that was supposed to kind of take over was largely let go. And so that kind of forced the issue. But at the same time, I was telling Eric the story. So when that happened, it was painful, but at the same time, I wasn't really surprised. And I had said to myself when this was bubbling around, I said, you know what, if this company decides to let me go, I don't want to work at this company. It's not. If that's the choice and that's their direction, I don't think this is the place where I do want to give, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be giving my all. So I got home that night and I was sitting by the bench outside of Ruthie's, and we'd been open for at least maybe 6-7 years at that point, but I'd been working there helping him, but not full time. And a couple walked by. They didn't know who I was, and they're looking at the restaurant and they said, "Oh, this is that place, Ruthie's. We've heard such great things about this place. We have to come here. I hear it's wonderful." And that just healed my heart so much at that moment. And that was my decision that this is it. I'm staying here. This is what I'm going to do.
You're ready to transition from that.
I was ready to transition. So it really was, because I was ready, and it was time. And I felt, now's your opportunity, Ruth, to step into that other world that you've been dreaming about.
So you started, so it sounds like, from a timeline perspective, it sounds like when Ruthie started, you kept a foot in both worlds for a period of time. Mm-hmm. And then when things shifted, then
yeah. And also when things shifted, I had already worked for myself. That 10 years that I spent on my own, that really gave me the confidence to know that I can make things happen. It's okay. I had that experience. And that's a lot of how I spoke with Eric when we first decided to open Ruthie's, because he was trepidatious about it. He'd been in the restaurant business for over 30 years and worked in some of the best restaurants in New York and ran some huge kitchens, but he was scared to do it, to run his own business. But, I was the one behind him going, "Oh, you can do that. Come on. You know everything. There's nothing, there's not a single thing here that I don't think that you could handle. It's just the fear, the risk." And I think that is a quality that I do have, that I'm not really that, I'm not risk adverse. Mm-hmm. And I'm also someone that's comfortable in the gray. I don't need things to be black and white. I think having something unknown is okay. But I'm also not someone that will go out and say, "I'm going to put everything in so I'll lose my shirt." I don't want to lose my shirt, obviously. I don't want to do that. I'm going to be kind of careful and sensible. And
So it sounds like there was a good mix of risk and plan, together,
mm-hmm.
together that brought you over. So you shifted gears and you jumped all in, and you have this business, with your husband. So what is that like? We talk to so many women business owners that do it alone, right? And they talk a lot about, that experience. What is it like doing it with your life partner?
Yeah, that's unique. It's unique. It can be at times the most joyous experience I've ever had in my life, so about something that involves work, to also the most painful. So it goes both ways. And it's because it is an intimate relationship. So even though you're running a business together, and I would think back sometimes on things that would happen between Eric and I that would annoy me in our business. When I think back, if I was working back in corporate or working with a client, that it wouldn't have annoyed me like that. I wouldn't have taken it the same way. but it's because this is a, you know, an intimate relationship, a loving relationship, that it's hard uh, to separate those things. But at the same time, I think we create something that much more powerful and that much more authentic. People come into our place and they really do say, this feels like a home, you know, that this has a vibe about it that is, you know, you're not in a commercial enterprise.
Yes. Well, and I can attest to that from, being there many times. Not only, does it feel like home because the cooking feels very, comforting. Everything
Yeah.
about the menu is that as well, but the
Mhm.
environment, whether it's outside on the garden patio or whether it's inside, you
Mhm.
know, um, in the restaurant.
I
Um,
think how we make it work is we give each other a lot of space. You
mhm.
know, Eric, as you see all the guitars behind me, he's a very
Yes,
talented musician. And you know what it's like living with a musician. You know, they really
yes.
music is where he can go and, you know, get his mojo or heal himself or calm himself or whatever it is. And me, I think I mean, me, it's community and also this work out at the farm and kind of building this new chapter of our lives and and working with people that are so mission driven and so driven to giving back. That is just fuels me. So we also give each other our space and, you know, respect each other's time and don't try to get into each other's lanes too much. So that's very important. And we've been more successful when we do that, when we're not just on top of each other all the time.
Yeah, define some space for each other. So you
Yeah.
mentioned the farm. I know Lana's watching too. But I know you mentioned the farm, and I also know Lana told me that you inspired the Farmpreneurs program.
That's
Um,
awesome.
is
That's really exciting. Thank
Yeah, which
you.
is amazing. So let's jump there and talk about the farm and community and how, that all came to be, because that seemed to be like the next chapter of this chapter, like another chapter grew within a chapter almost. It all kind of unfoiled.
So when I started working at Ruthie's full time, this farm has been in my family since the 70s. It's in Warren County, New Jersey, in this little hamlet called Marksboro. And it's about 40 acres, 28 acres of it is farmable. The rest of it is woods. It's absolutely gorgeous, beautiful place that when I was working in the city, that's where I would go on the weekends. You know, my parents, by the time I was in my early 30s, weren't really using it that much. I finally took over the farm. I bought out my brothers on the rest of the property. And it was always a refuge for me. And it also was a place, it was a very important contrast to New York City and my life there. So I really built community there. I had a boyfriend there for a long time. I had good friends there. I kept a horse there. You know, it was another home.
Mhm.
Um, and then my dad had always said, even when he first got the farm, we'd walk through the fields and they were growing hay and small grain for feed. Never really much food. But my dad would walk around and say, you know, Ruthie, someday we should be growing food here for fine restaurants in New York City. And I always loved that story. And that's because, you know, he traveled to Europe a lot and he knew how the Italians ate and they would eat what was locally produced and locally sourced. And so fast forward to now when there's much more awareness about that and also the agriculture out in that part of New Jersey has even become less food centric. And everything was shifting to a lot of chemical treatments. And my farmer was doing that as well. So with the restaurant, I thought, here's the opportunity now to do some food. And we have a restaurant, we have a farm. Why not explore that? So the first thing I did was I asked my farmer to carve out a section, like a 30 by 60 section for me to start growing organic vegetables for the farm. I had no experience in this. I knew how to garden. I'd planted flowers and gardens. And in fact, that's what I used to do a lot on my weekends from New York. But I really didn't know much about growing food organically. I connected with Lana early on. I remember going to Montclair community farms, asking some advice. Janice's Farms is up the road. I would explore things with them. And then I just got going. So that was really an exciting experience because all of a sudden we're producing food and bringing it into the restaurant. I'm making food out of it. Eric's preparing things, I'm preparing things. And it was so joyful to connect with our customers and say, yeah, I grew that tomato and that gazpacho, I grew those peppers and I did. And they said, oh, you did? Where are you doing that? And then I would talk to them about the section of New Jersey where I found a lot of people are not that familiar with.
Mm.
And it really struck me how people not only enjoyed the food and appreciated that this was, extremely farm to table because it was our farm and our table.
Yeah.
That I was actually doing well. Sorry. And I felt like I was inspiring people. And I started asking how to do it themselves. And in fact, I remember I was on the board of the Montclair Art Museum at the time, and we were talking about their garden, the spring gala where they have the garden club participate. And that's when I was really trying to inspire them to do that more around food, about flowers and food, and how people in Montclair can grow their own food within their flower garden, and consider that. So I became more aware, of course, like all of us, about climate change and, what we can do to affect that. So around this time, that's when I got introduced to River Valley Community Grains and their work around small grains and local flour. And that came out of an initiative that was regenerative agriculture initiative about preserving the watershed in that region of New Jersey, and how these practices could lead to sustainable food sources where the traditional growers there could actually economically benefit from this, and at the same time not be destroying our soil and our watersheds. They just needed a partner. They needed someone to help them with an agronomist and with the techniques and how to do it, because it is involved. It's a little more work, particularly when you get started. And then even more importantly, they needed a mill. They needed an infrastructure, because what we didn't have in New Jersey is that we could grow these grains, but after you grew it, where do you send it? A lot of people sent it out to Pennsylvania because there were millers and we're growing organically. So the only organic grains were out in Pennsylvania, organic mills. So it just seemed like a really cool opportunity. And I'm like, me who's like, I started out saying, I love new things. I love things, places that had never been explored before. But this spoke to me. And there was this old warehouse in our village that I always loved. And it used to be the place where people would bring farm equipment and restore it. And now, since the farming world had changed so much, people weren't using this type of equipment anymore. It was more monoculture, not all the diversity of types of agriculture. So they didn't need all the different types of equipment. This place went out of business about 20 years ago, but the building was well maintained. And now I turned to them and said, do you want to sell? And that's what we did. So that's what we're currently now in the process of restoring and setting up a mill, and as you described in the beginning, educational center, demonstration kitchen, and that's all in the works right now. And just to one more point, because I talk about entrepreneurship, and that's a lot of the. Well, it still was interesting, but when you get into something new that you don't know, it is challenging. There is so much I don't know about this world. So it's time consuming. I have this phrase I use, embrace the mundane. I know more about septic systems now than you'd ever want to know. and planning boards and excavation fans and all these things, all of this stuff that's very technical and has nothing to do with my previous life of design and beautiful clothes and things like that.
So for anyone who's thinking about getting into something so different than maybe even their own knowledge base, but it just seems like an opportunity, can I ask, just to help model this for others? I mean, do you surround yourself with experts? It sounds like you're doing a lot of the education yourself. You're learning a lot and researching yourself. What's that process like to make, give yourself an infrastructure for this new?
Well, you're right. Experts. I mean, I ask a lot of questions. I do the work to try to go out and find who's the most knowledgeable here. And I'm always very comfortable saying, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm in something I don't know. I'm learning as I go. Or, this is my first experience with this. So I'm not uncomfortable not knowing. And I think I wasn't always that way. I think that I've learned over time that that's a plus, to be uncomfortable with the unknown.
Yeah.
I think when I was younger, I thought that was a weakness and I should walk into a room knowing everything. And until I really started discovering, no, I can have a vision, I can have an idea, but then walk into a room and ask questions and listen and try to understand. And if I don't understand, ask another question or ask them to repeat until I do feel comfortable. I don't ever like to leave the situation still having questions. I try to make sure that I got the understanding I was looking for in that situation.
Well, that's such a great life lesson for, others to kind of
Mm.
leave with, is that, you don't always have to know it all. And that, that you made that shift over the course of your career and life, and that it's really served you well. And the whole time you're talking, I keep thinking about the Zen saying, leap and the net will appear, because
Yeah.
it seems like that's how you live your life. And we hear that a lot from a lot of entrepreneurs, right? That are
Mhm.
very successful, is that they have to be okay, like you said, in that gray space,
Yeah.
and live okay with chaos.
Yeah,
So
I heard someone talk about our period right now, living with the pandemic, and the ways to, how do we have a healthy space in our minds with this unknown
yeah,
around us all the time. And I think it's us accepting that life is uncertainty, that's the truth.
yeah,
And I think all of us are very attuned to getting things how we want them, under certain controls. It shouldn't be
mhm,
like this. That's not. No, it actually it is uncertain. It
yeah,
is
yeah.
the human experience.
It is amazing how the Four Noble Truths are probably the most best information that you could embrace during this time, for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
So, I have to ask, because we have a lot of working moms, that are connected to the YW, and we have a lot of conversations about, balance and shift. And I know that you are a mom. Can you talk a little bit about how you've navigated all that you just shared, and at the same time, you know
well, I'm a stepmother,
okay,
and
yeah.
so I'm a mom partner. So
Yeah, yeah,
and Max came into my life when he was 8, and he was basically the closer for me as far as Eric and I in our lives, because I fell so in love with Max, and he with me too, and it was just, my God, that just the most wonderful addition to my life, and still is. And so I think, Mac, not I don't know, having worked with women with young children and with babies, I think that's sometimes I would look at my colleagues and be like, I don't know how you do this. I don't know how you possibly do it. And because I do, that seems, you need to be home, and there's that baby's crying for your full attention. But having had Max in my life since he was 8, I think he actually helped me um, grow as a colleague and as a leader,
mm,
because I think seeing how he learned, I think seeing how I was more patient with him, and I took that to my work,
mm,
and I took that, all of the experiences I had of teaching Max by example, and never speaking to Max in a way that was like, you should be doing this, you should. It would make me think, how do I help Max? And I think I help him by showing him the example of how I would like him to be and like him to see. And then that really helped me professionally, because that I found I was, I took that to heart. And then I think it's a lot of asking help,
mhm,
and asking help with your other friends and other mothers, and certainly Max's mom and I had a really great relationship, and his dad, of course. And so we all helped each other. And his mother's a working mom too. So, it's really quite lovely. I mean, we have a wonderful relationship, and she was, very grateful that I came into their lives, because I think it helped her a lot, with what she was doing. So I think that, that statement, if it takes a village, I think I take that to heart.
Well, that's another
Mhm.
beautiful model for sure for,
Mhm.
for us to be thinking about. So what's next for you? Obviously, you're still getting the Mill and Educational Center up and running, and we know that the restaurant is, booming and is, one of the establishments that, was able to get through this challenging time, basically
Mhm.
by embracing and supporting the community. I mean, I think that's, from watching as an outsider in, that really had so much to do because the community knew that you all cared.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Um, what's next is this project. I mean, the location is a warehouse, but there also are a couple of outbuildings. There's a home. And what we see there eventually is, we're starting with the mill. It's going to be called Marksboro Mills, but it's such a beautiful space. There's obviously opportunities for music and food and some events. But there are other opportunities for other artisans. I'm also working with the Food Shed Alliance. I'm president of the board of that organization out in New Jersey, and they've been working on sustainable food systems and social justice, food justice, for about a decade now. And I don't want to get that wrong. I've just started within the past 2 years, so I don't have it memorized how long they've been operating. But they'll be part of this with their food hub, so they'll be working out of there as well. And through them, I've met so many more people who are working out in this part of New Jersey around sustainable food. Um, it's you know, this is Western New Jersey is very different from where we are here in Essex County. It's obviously much more rural. It's much more conservative, and I am excited to connect with that community around this kind of work, because this is a place where we all agree.
Mhm.
There's no resistance I'm feeling out there from people saying we don't need to protect our food systems. No, everyone can come together around this. And so I look at it as an opportunity to heal. It's an opportunity to bring communities together from areas that maybe don't usually talk to each other.
Mhm.
And I like to see myself as a bridge, for that. I think that that's really exciting. It's an opportunity. I have some very dear friends I care about very much that are incredibly supportive of the work I'm doing, and that we're all doing out there. I This is the type of project that it has a bit of that build it and they will come. There are opportunities for other artisans, for other educators. I was talking to a friend of mine, Ian, who works in Montclair Design Week and also teaches at Montclair State. His wife is Petia, and he's so knowledgeable about food foraging. And I had them out over Thanksgiving, and we're walking around, and he's just pointing to all these things on the ground. You can eat that. You can eat that. Do you know if you do that, you can eat that? And do you know you can that? And he's just talking about this. And I said, "Oh my God, you need to have an education center here. We have to learn more about foraging. We learn to." And so there's so many opportunities. I think that once this gets going, that I'd love to see more people join us and join our work.
Well, and for our viewers, you can join Ruthie and all she's talking about. We have all the links for you here in the comments. You can connect to Ruthie's barbecue and enjoy a great meal and be part of that community. Hear some live music. You can connect to Montclair Community Farms. Their link is here for you as well, and learn about the connections and the work that she's doing there. As she shared about being on the foodshedalliance.org, we've got their website for you here also. And also you can follow River Valley Community Grains. Go to their website. And all of these organizations are also on Instagram and on Facebook. So you can connect in many places. I know I follow all of them except for Food Shed Alliance, which I'm going to start following now.
Yeah,
Um,
they have a lot of great programs, and they have a lot of wonderful opportunities to volunteer, as well as growing opportunities. And you should really explore them deeply. They're wonderful.
yes, I'm looking forward to learning more about their work. And you guys can too. So just connect. That's all here for you. And you can, as I said, follow Ruthie and all she's evolving and doing. And I'm sure more sites will pop up for us to connect to. And I do encourage everyone to, really think about not only for yourself, but for your children. We really need to raise our next generation. I know my kids are connected to Montclair Community Farms, and Lana, they love the programs there. And just, hearing Ruthie talk about an educational center, is exciting for me to think about, not only for our family, but, others. So much that you can take into your life, and then your family and the next generations grow with an understanding as well. It really
Yeah.
keeps hope alive.
It is, and it's a very unique opportunity, this location, because you could be across the street, you can look at the wheat, you can see it grow, you can watch it get planted, you can see it be brought over to the warehouse, then cleaned and milled, and then you can see immediately bake it and put it into a granola cookie
Yeah.
or a pie or a pizza crust.
Talk about making the connection. I mean,
Yeah,
there's no more
yeah.
present way to do it than that. And
Mhm.
I know Eartha, one of our viewers, said that she loves your confidence. So maybe as we're closing, Ruthie, maybe you could share a little bit about, for our other female entrepreneurs, any thoughts for them, any ways to kind of really harness that confidence and
Oh, that's lovely. Well, thank you for saying that. Oh, I don't know, actually. I mean, I'm thinking of my mother right now. And my mother really, I think, instilled a lot of confidence in me. And she really encouraged me. We were raised, or we women of my age were raised of that first generation, really, to go into fully into the workforce. I graduated from high school in 1979. And, my mom just really sent me out there, just really just saying, "You're amazing. You're amazing. You're going to make it work." And my father too, and my dad too. They instilled a lot of confidence. And I think I also, holding this kind of that confidence, what it said to me was, "You'll be able to get through. You're going to be able to fix it." So, like, people have asked me, "How do you deal with failure?" And I'm thinking back, I've certainly experienced failure, and I did at Ralph Lauren. We would sometimes have these big presentations, and he wouldn't approve them or say this has to completely change, and it'd be a lot of work. And but then I would just kind of calm down and take a breath and just kind of say, "I got this. I can do this. We all can do this. It's just going to take some work, but we'll get through it. We're going to do it." So, not to allow yourself to get overwhelmed by all the negatives out there. Just, I don't know, just brush that away. Don't pay attention. Just kind of stay with, like, you got this.
so a good circle and some good self-talk, it
Mm.
sounds like is
And
definitely.
self-compassion. I'm very into this idea of self-compassion now. I can't remember the name of the psychologist off the top of my head, but she's written some great books on it. And there's one that she's written just for women that's called Fierce Self-Compassion or something.
Mhm.
I'll try to get it later. I'll try to get you the link to that so you can
Yeah, we can
put
drop
in
it
there
in.
too. Yeah, drop that in, because it's designed for women. And it speaks a lot to me. So
Well,
we got to be easy on ourselves.
we do, and I love that, and I know our team is listening too. We're right now working on the topics for our Women's Leadership Conference that we do every March during Women's History Month. So,
Mm.
self-compassion, maybe that's we have a good
Well, it's a good one. I'll get you the link.
conversation
Yeah, I'll send
around
you
that
the
for
information.
sure.
Yeah.
So, folks, as I said, it's the weekend, and we hope that you have a great one. Whatever you're doing, stay safe. Try to recharge a little bit, and hopefully embrace some great food, some live music, and you can
Yeah.
definitely do that at Ruthie's. And
Check our website. We have our music calendars up on our website. So
yes, always lots of great musicians. There's a
yeah.
particular drummer that I'm fond of that plays there regularly.
Yeah.
But I have to say, there's always good tunes, no matter when you drop in, for sure.
Yeah.
And for the rest of you, we hope you join us next week. We'll be back with some more YWTV for you. And for switching gears a little bit, for any of the sexual violence survivors that are connected to our program, we want to make sure that on December 23rd, we'll be hosting a virtual coffee house for you from 6:30 to 7:30. We know that the holidays can be a difficult time, and we're happy to have this space with you. So please, you can reach out, and we'll put the link here for you to connect. The new year is coming, and with that, lots of new great programming at the YW too. So stay linked to us on all of our social media, and you'll get all the invites. And so with that, have a great weekend, Ruthie. Again, thank you so much for spending this time with you. You're such an inspiration. Clearly to our viewers, and I know for me personally, and I'm just looking forward to watching what's coming next.
We'd love to have you out there, Helen.
All right.
All right. Okay.
Be well.